In my recent address to a large gathering of older and some very old people, I stressed the possibility of finding different ways to flourish in our older years, and especially if flourishing was in short supply in the younger years. After the talk, as I walked to the car park, one of the older women cut me off and told me she knew exactly what I was talking about. She said her first marriage had been a terrible disaster, and she had been through enormous turmoil over it. In fact, she became quite mentally ill and tried to take her life. She was in a psychiatric hospital for some time and given some good therapy. But then she came out to try life again. She married a second time. It too was a failure. So she started to believe it must surely be her fault, that she was no good, and that there was no joy to be had in the future. But she said, I then met Mr. Wonderful. And I've been living with Mr. Wonderful ever since. Years ago, she almost ended her life. So I said, stop for just a moment, and realize that that's what could have happened. But here, you're alive and on a different pathway, and it's flourishing. I dare say you'll all know the long-term burdens that we can experience from the mistake we made. Was it a mistake in your relationship or your relationship behavior? Was it a mistake in the choice of your career or what happened within your job? Was it a mistake within your family? How many people have said to me, we wish that we'd brought up our children in a different way. So you wish and you wish. But something happens and you can't get over it. You can't let it be. Can't settle the memory of it. Sometimes we even hear people say that jail sentence that that person received will not bring back the person that is now dead. And so they revisit and they re-scarify and they remember and they go on and they go on. There it is, like an obsession, until it is an obsession. On my chart of 17 Fs, some of you will remember, the woman about whom I spoke had found it was possible to move from F1, where she felt desperate, helpless, disillusioned, and empty. That F1 of those feelings, she had moved to F17, where she's experiencing the various pathways of flourishing. I'm not going to labour the other Fs. But you know, if your feelings are low, you will not function as you would hope. You might lose focus, the focus that is vital. And you'll start wondering about your future, your fantasy of the future. That woman knew all of those. But for us, she showed us it was possible to leave F1 and to discover F17. The woman would be surprised if I told her she had not only found good therapy to release her from her painful and empty past, but she'd also found some good theology to remind her that life and God come as a gift, and that gift can point us not only to the healing of the self, but the healing in the world. Not only to the healing at that level, but to the very depths of what healing can be about. We can all of us become convinced, of course, that we have to defend ourselves, protect ourselves from nasty attacks, from the empty void, and we get stuck there and don't find the way to our healing in the depths. Way back in the last century, Sigmund Freud taught and wrote about the defense mechanisms. The defense mechanisms, he said, were necessary to defend against our inner anxiety, to defend against the fears that come to us from the outer world. He named about 9 defense mechanisms, though people in an ongoing way have now come to name about 16 of them. His secular therapy could be enlarged if we add to that therapy, a different therapy of what I call the release mechanisms or the release processes. And so we hear again that biblical passage this morning talking about that woman finding release. Release. You need defenses to protect you, but how will you find that release? The release from those anxieties, from your traumas, from your troubles, from your past. How will you be released from a half-lived life? Your empty life, if that's been the case, so that you might embrace F17, the flourishing life again, or maybe for the first time. You would know that the population is rather crowded with people accusing others of damaging them, diminishing their chances of being a flourishing person. Or in any of our streets, in any gathering of people, you'll meet some who will say that they've become jammed up with those intractable beliefs. I cannot forgive. I cannot forget. I cannot move on. I'm stuck. I cannot get that person out of my mind. I cannot focus on anything else. Only this, only this, only this. And so it goes on. In a few weeks' time, I'll have here, in a similar way that I had Sefiki today, I'll have here Dr. Leslie Canold, my guest. She has written an excellent book called The Book of Rachel. And at one point, Rachel says, "At night, thoughts unbidden spring up in my mind, demanding to be rehearsed again and again, demanding a decisive response, but nothing can be done except search and search and search." Religion, as it has most often been portrayed, has said you need to seek peace with your God. He will forgive you. Seek forgiveness. Yes, you can forgive your brother for getting off with everything the family ever owned. Religion even goes so far as to say you can forgive your brother not once, not twice, but 7 times. Forgive him. But it's not so easy. It's not easy at all because we remain angry, we remain distraught, we remain miserable, we remain obsessed, fixated on it. You can say, forgive him, but the anger, the disillusionment, the sense of humiliation, the disgust, they remain there. So now, what will we do? William James, that great psychologist, says we need to bring a healthy-minded approach to this. So let us bring a new therapy and a new theology together so that we can move from the F1 to the F17, from feeling hurt to being healed, from being in pain to being a participant in a new pathway. From the destructive to the constructive. From being fixated to a celebrated freedom. Can we do that? I'm going to give you 4 or 5 pathways to take. You need to decide, first of all, you need to decide if you want to stay at F1 and fuel those bad feelings, those hurt feelings, those unhealed feelings, those helpless feelings. Be stuck there. You can do that. Or do you want to move to F17? The psychologists call F17 the flourishing life. The theologians call it life in all its fullness. So Jesus of Nazareth asked the question, do you want to be cured? Do you want to be healed? Not an easy question, because there's so many other things tied to it. So from that question, I moved to the issues of what's tangled up with it. For most of us, the problem that is on our mind is not only a problem, not only an event. It is enmeshed in our interpersonal relationships. It has a loading of emotion, anger, resentment, sadness, shame, guilt, all the rest of it. It's got a loading of emotion. It is tangled up with interpretations, with meanings, with accusations, with excuses, with attitudes that you and others weave into the fabric of that problem. It is already a memory, because you are troubled now about events that are long since past, but they become present by the courier of your memory. A very effective courier for many of us, but a courier that can be a great troublemaker. That memory keeps revisiting us, distressing us. The problem, not only so, it then carries a second loading of emotions on top of the memory. And that second load of emotions in turn start to become strong collaborators with our moods and our personality. So it's not just a problem we've got, but it's all this stuff that gets around it and gets woven into it. So then I come to the third issue. All of these then go looking for the behavior that tells the story of our pain, our hurt, our obsession. Some become withdrawn and morose. Some become angry, aggrieved fighters. Some become avoiders and work to keep their minds occupied and look out for anybody who comes to intrude upon their thoughts. Behavior, therefore, can be the behavior of a hurt person, wanting to go on hurting, wanting to hurt others, wanting to get some revenge or reparation, wanting to show that it is an unhealable situation. We're convinced of it. Nothing can help. Until we stop and say, that's the behavior that you can get locked into. Or there is another kind of behavior, a behavior that can take other pathways. As soon as you decide that you're going to leave F1 and go seeking for F17. The fourth issue. This matter then becomes something to do with your worldview. The world and life can be so hurtful. And so you might say, what have I done to deserve this? What has God got to do with this? Well, God never played much of a part in my life anyway. So why should he play a part now? These things fall on my path. This is you putting together your philosophy, your theology. I've done nothing to deserve this, you see. And here you can hear yourself or the other person concerned expressing their view about themselves, the psychology of themselves, of the self, and the theology of the self. What is the theology of the self? Do you believe that the self can be healed? That the mind can be healed? Does yourself need to be healed? Can you and your relationship ever be healed? Can you find healing in life itself? So even if you can't find it here, can you see it in life itself? And what depth will that healing take? Where will healing be found when all the avenues of healing seem to have been tried and are now closed off? You see, if a person is dead, they're not going to walk through the door again, even though you wish they could. Even though your thoughts go back to them again and again, claiming it could not have been like this, it should not have been like this. When that reality is hit, that is the reality. If your relationship is depleted, all your demands, all your destructiveness will not restore it, but will certainly expand your pain. So we must constantly ask, do you want to move from F1 to F17? Do you want to expand your wounds and let them continue to bleed, or will you take steps to heal those wounds and stop the emotional bleeding? Will you take the pathways of release, or will you protract the pain? Well, might we call this the month for the pursuit of pleasure? Release lifts the burden, opens the door to life and a new exploration of new pleasures, but rehearsing the obsession and reopening the wound will only bring protracted pain. Last Sunday afternoon, we held the annual service here at St. Michael's to remember those who have died from breast cancer or ovarian cancer or prostate cancer, and to give support to the survivors. It was also a service to be a support around those people who are the survivors themselves, as well as the grieving ones. I found it a very moving event, simple in its ritual of remembering, grieving, ritual of soothing and support, and finding new strength. It was an event where all of our women might have been a therapeutic community to support these gathered families and individuals who came, men, women and children, came from many parts of Melbourne and beyond. It was an event when all of our men might have been a therapeutic community of support for the men who were here and their families and the tears that were being shed. You see, we can hold many talk fests on theology, on therapy, as well we might in this coming week of Psychology Week. But the work of theology and therapy really comes alive in this supportive community, when the rituals of release and healing are reenacted and even celebrated. We need to be part of this important component of the new faith, to quit all this argumentation about what you'll believe and what you won't believe, and to really be a community of healing, support, and strength. All of us, we all know the jam up that can occur when something hurtful happens to us, when an injustice is done, when a problem becomes protracted and tenacious. The vital goal is to see how an intelligent, practical theology can join with an intelligent, practical therapy, and to do something very important. The new faith sees faith as an energy of healing. It calls on hope as a commitment to a constructive future. It calls on love, the love of self, the love of life, the love of an ongoing pursuit of a way to live in a world of horrible people and challenging experiences. Faith, hope, and love, yes, of course, but also courage. The courage to be in face of these events and those experiences that threaten the courage to be a flourishing person. Call on courage. Marjorie Pizer in her poem said, "Call on courage when fear engulfs. It is provided in limitless loads." You see, when you release the other person, the negative energy goes. The regeneration of energy, that negative energy ceases. The revisiting of the negative memory, the troublesome memory, is changed. Its power, its position, its purpose goes. And when I release myself from my obsessive thoughts of going back over it again, when I find that release, the energy is neutralized and quietened. As the first prayer in our service today said, myself regains its vital quietness. My personality begins to settle and even start to grow again. So what will we do? Number one, it's important to decide if you want to live in the pain of F1, or do you want the exhilarating ultimate pleasure of experiencing F17? Number two, we need to deal with the problem, but also its many tenacious loads of tangled emotions and meanings and memories and moods. Number three, we need to constantly intercept our own destructive behavior and to find the constructive course in ourselves or with the help of others. In this week of psychology and mental health, we need the help of others. Number four, we need to explore and open up a worldview of the human being finding healing. We all need a world of healing. Healing in the context of life's relationships. And number five, we need to find that soothing, supportive pleasure of people going through that shared ritual of remembering and restoration, moving from the deepest feeling of their pain to a discovery of life's fullness and flourishing. Is it possible? Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? Is it possible? Would you stand? And would you pause for the blessing? May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forward. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.